Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be trying the brand new Haus Labs concealer. This is the Triclone Skin Tech Concealer. I have been so excited for this to release. I actually ordered this a little bit early. Sephora released it on their app for like a day for a few hours earlier than the launch date. So I was able to order it then, but it just came in the mail. I have not tried it yet. I'm so excited to try another concealer. I guess this is just the season of concealers right now. I want to know what this one is all about. I want to compare it to some other things that I love. If you're new here, my name is Blair. I do all kinds of beauty and makeup content here on YouTube every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I hope you'll subscribe and let's get started. Okay, so I have on a little bit of the Haus Labs foundation. This one right here, I wear the shade 160 in this. I will say this is not the best shade match for me. I don't know that I have a perfect shade match, to be honest, in this foundation, but this is what I have, so we're gonna use it. So I have that on already, and what I wanna do with the concealer is use a color corrector on one eye and nothing on the other eye. If you're new to my videos, I usually do color corrector every day under my concealer, but I know not everybody does or wants to see that, so I'll do one eye with the color corrector and one eye without it so we can see the difference. But this is the packaging. It looks like the same packaging as the foundation, and I picked the shade 11, which they say is light neutral. I will say that I had a really hard time picking a shade in this. Same with the foundation. I feel like the shades for Haus Labs complexion products are very difficult to determine. I've heard a lot of people say the warm shades are cool, the cool shades are warm, like MAC shades. I have a neutral shade, and I would say this one still leans pretty warm. So I don't know, but I do find the shades to be a little bit difficult. But this is what the packaging looks like. It's pretty basic. It just kind of looks like a mini of the foundation. So this is shade 11, light neutral. Now, when I was picking out my shade, they do have a chart that tries to help you based on your foundation shade, your Haus Labs foundation shade. Mine, like I said, is 160. I didn't really go based on what they said for that shade because it's not a perfect shade for me. I think they suggested shade 13 for a perfect match and then shade 4 for a brightening concealer, which I'm not huge on brightening concealers. I like something a little bit brighter, but really closer to my skin tone if possible. So I went down one from what they suggested to match 160, which would be 11. So that's how I went with this. But honestly, I don't know. And I haven't seen it in person. Obviously, this hasn't even released yet officially when I'm filming this, but the shades are definitely a little bit difficult. This concealer retails for $32. It comes in 31 shades, and they do have the same skincare claims with the concealer that they do with the foundation. That's kind of something that makes the Haus Labs products a little bit different to me. I want to say they have around 20 different skincare ingredients in this, and the same with this, like niacinamide, glycerin, hyaluronic acid, fermented arnica is a big one that I know they talk about a lot in the foundation. It is in this as well. That's kind of an anti-inflammatory ingredient. It's good for redness from what I've read. We're going to do color corrector on one eye, like I said. So I'm going to do the Natasha Denona Hy-Glam Corrector in the shade C1. So I'm going to do my left eye with the corrector. So in terms of the texture on this concealer from Haus Labs, it's a little bit on the thick side, thicker than I was thinking, definitely thicker than the Tower 28, and I think thicker than the Mario concealer as well. I did do a video comparing these side by side that I will list above for you, so go watch that if you haven't watched it after you watch this one. but this one definitely feels a bit thicker than those. Here's what the doe foot looks like. It's kind of a fatter doe foot applicator. This concealer claims to have a natural finish and buildable medium coverage, which I believe is what the Tower 28 and the Makeup by Mario claim as well. They all claim to be natural finish, medium coverage. But let's go ahead and do this eye first. And we'll just tap this in using the 110 from BK Beauty. And I did just clean this brush, so there's nothing else on it. I would definitely say it kind of feels like a thicker serum consistency. Like, I think they call the Tower 28 a serum. This feels similar to that, but a thicker version. It just has more like viscosity to it. I don't know if that's the right word, but that's kind of how it feels. Definitely not as liquidy as the Tower 28. All right, so there is that eye done with the color corrector on underneath. Definitely spreads quite a bit. I would say you don't need a lot of it. I would say that honestly about all three of these. You really don't need to apply a ton of product. Okay, right now it looks pretty hydrating. I would say a bit radiant to me. I wouldn't call this a natural finish personally. Let's give it a minute and kind of see if it sets down at all, and we'll go in with the other side with no corrector, so just with the concealer. I do think the shade is actually good, and I'm kind of shocked because, like I said, I had a really hard time picking the shade. All right, and then I'm just gonna use the same brush. Yeah, I actually really like the shade that I picked. I'm surprised because I went back and forth several times on what shade to choose. So this eye is with the concealer only, and this eye has color corrector. This eye that has the color corrector is my darker eye of the two. This side is already going to be a bit more difficult to cover, so that's why I went in with the corrector over here. This side is a little bit lighter, but I do still have those purpley blue tones under that eye too. Yeah, I love the color I chose. I think it goes well with 160 because it lightens it a little bit. Because like I said, 160 is not a perfect shade match for me. I actually like the look of it on its own, but even this side with the corrector, I mean, it looks pretty radiant to me. I don't know, maybe it will set down a little bit more, but I would say it's a bit more than a natural finish to me. The coverage is pretty good, even the side without corrector, so this one over here, the coverage is pretty good. I would say it's a solid medium without adding more or without the color corrector underneath, which is nice. I definitely prefer a medium to full coverage under my eyes. Okay, it's been a few minutes. I just wanted to kind of let it sit on my skin for a minute before I really look at it. So again, this side has no corrector, this side has corrector. I definitely think now it has set down a little bit. It looks more like a natural finish to me. But when you first apply it, it definitely does have more of a radiant finish to it. But I do think it has set down quite a bit, and I think it looks nice under my eyes. I have to say, I think I do like the side with nothing underneath in terms of the finish. I don't know, I think it might be because it is a little bit of a thicker texture that it might be one you have to be careful with what you pair underneath. Because the Natasha Denona side looks good in terms of the coverage, but I do feel like I like the overall look of the eye with no corrector a little bit better. I just like the finish, and it's probably because it's on bare under eyes. I don't have anything else on there, but the coverage is really nice. It's not doing any creasing or anything weird. Those are my thoughts. I want to finish my makeup, but before I do that, I want to do a few shade comparisons for you in case you're wondering. So I have the Makeup by Mario concealer in the shade 160. And I want to swatch it with the Haus Labs next to it. So there's a pretty big difference in undertone there. So this is the Haus Labs. This is Makeup by Mario. Haus Labs, I would say their depth of color is pretty similar. The Makeup by Mario is just more pinky. This one is more yellow toned, although they say it's neutral. And then in the Tower 28, I have shade 3 and shade 4. So we have Makeup by Mario in 160, Haus Labs in shade 11, Tower 28 in shade 3, and Tower 28 in shade 4. So those are the swatches. Honestly, swatch-wise, I really love shade 4 of Tower 28. It's a little bit of a cooler undertone, which I tend to like under my eyes, and it's not too light. I also don't like something that's too light. I definitely don't think the Haus Labs is too light under my eyes. I don't know, maybe it is a little bit on the yellow side, even though they do claim that it's neutral. But finish and the way it looks really, really nice. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and do the rest of my makeup. I'll come back and we might use a little bit of the Haus Labs loose powder, which I love, and I use that a lot under my eyes actually. So we might set both sides or one side, I'm not sure, but let me finish a little bit of my makeup and I'll be back. Okay, so I did some bronzer and some blush. Now I think I am gonna set my under eyes just because I know I like this powder and I use it with other concealers under my eyes, so we're gonna use it today. This is the Haus Labs loose powder in translucent. But what I will say is I was looking up close here and these look really good. After sitting for like 15 or 20 minutes, there's no like creasing. They look really nice and smooth and the perfect natural finish. Not super matte, not glowy, just right in between. And I mean, under eyes look really good. I'm gonna try to stay in frame while I do this, but I'm just gonna lightly, very lightly set really right in this just inner corner. So that was the side with no corrector. And then this is the side with corrector. Do you see how blurring that powder is? I talk about it all the time, but I swear, it is good. It is really, really good. Okay, I'm gonna finish the rest of my makeup and I'll be back. All right, I finished the rest of my makeup and so far the concealer looks really good. Really, really good. I think it might be a little bit on the light side for me, and I think paired with the 160 foundation, it makes it look really light under my eyes just because that shade is a little bit dark for me. So I think with some of my other complexion products, it won't look as light, but with this foundation, it does. But the finish on it, even with the powder, looks really good, really smooth. Overall, the eye with the corrector underneath looks a little bit more full coverage in terms of coverage level. But this one I feel like looks the most smooth and natural just because there's not as much product there. But honestly, both sides look really nice. So I'm gonna wear this all day today and I'll come back. I'll give you at least one natural light shot of it so you can see. And then I'll come back later and kind of give you my updated thoughts. But as of right now, I'm pretty impressed. So I'll see you in a few hours. Hi, it's been just a few hours since I applied this makeup, but you guys have got to see this concealer. It looks so good under my eyes. I'm honestly shocked. When I came over here in front of this window to look, I was like, it has not moved at all. I mean, it looks really, really smooth, and I'm just standing in front of a window. And I was out at the grocery store. It started raining. I had no umbrella or rain jacket, so I got rained on also, and still it looks like this. So far I am pretty impressed with the wear on this. I want to say this looks better at this point, a few hours in, than the Makeup by Mario for sure. Maybe not the Tower 28, but the wear on this, I want to say, is definitely better than the Makeup by Mario so far. But I mean, it looks pretty smooth. So just wanted to give you a natural light picture of it. But so far, I am very impressed. All right, it's the end of the day. I wanted to close out the video and just kind of share my thoughts so far with this concealer. The wear on it, very, very good so far. I mean, you could see really well in the natural light clip, but it is worn really, really well. It has not creased. It doesn't look super dry. I mean, maybe like slight, and I mean slight dryness there, but it hasn't separated weird or really worn away anywhere. Like I said earlier, I definitely think the color looks off here. And it's because the foundation is a little bit dark, and I guess I should have gone with shade 13 like they suggested to go with this foundation, but I know I'm not going to always wear it with this foundation, so I think with a lot of my other things, shade 11 should be okay. But yeah, the color range is tricky, very, very tricky. So hopefully when this releases, if you can, definitely go in store and look at the shades because they're just really hard to pick out online. I was out earlier. I went to the grocery store. It is really gross and rainy today. I got rained on my way home, and I didn't have an umbrella or anything. So my face definitely got wet, and nothing weird has happened to the concealer. I'm very impressed with the wear overall. What I'm thinking I'm gonna do is actually turn this into like a 2-day wear test and wear this again a different day, and maybe wear it next to the Tower 28 possibly, or maybe even the Natasha Denona concealer, just to kind of see a side by side. In terms of the side with the corrector and without the corrector, I don't see a huge difference. I do think the side with the corrector looks a little bit more worn, I guess. Like the product has separated a little bit more on that side, but not bad, just slightly. The side that did not have the corrector underneath, I feel like wore a little bit better. So I don't know, I'd have to try that out with different color correctors to see what works the best. But overall, I'm very impressed with this. So I think I am going to turn this into like a 2-day test, and I'll come back a different day and we'll do it side by side with another one of the newer concealers that are out, just so we can kind of see. But so far, I am very impressed with this. All right, it's actually a few days later, and we're going to continue this wear test of the new Haus Labs concealer. Today, I thought it would be fun to test it side by side with my current favorite, which if you've been watching my videos, you'll know what it is, but the Natasha Denona Hy-Glam Concealer has been my favorite for a while now. I can't get enough of this stuff. So I kind of want to see Haus Labs on one side and this one on the other, and we'll wear this all day today and kind of see how it holds up, because I was very impressed with the wear on this the other day when I wore it, and I feel the same way about the Natasha one. It wears very, very well on me, extremely long wearing. So I want to put these two side by side. I've been testing out the Tower 28 and the Makeup by Mario as well. If you saw my video, I did side by side of those. I've worn those a good bit more since that video, and I feel like I kind of have my thoughts on those, but I want to see truly how this compares to this. I already have on a little bit of skin tint, obviously, on my face, and today I went for something lighter that's not as dark as the Haus Labs foundation. So I have the Estee Lauder Double Wear Sheer on today in the shade 1 and 2, which I love this stuff. I've talked about it many, many times. It's just one of my favorite things I've tried, honestly. Before we go in with the concealers, I am going to use color corrector today, since this is how I would normally wear these concealers. So I'm going in with the Huda Beauty Faux filter in Pink Pomelo. All right, so I've got the corrector on. I want to show you swatches of the Natasha Denona and the Haus Labs, just so you can kind of see the difference in shade. So the top one here is Natasha Denona in N2, and this is Haus Labs in shade 11. So both of these claim to have neutral undertones, which is very interesting to me because the Natasha in N2 looks more neutral than the Haus Labs in shade 11. Haus Labs looks a little bit more yellow to me. That looks like true neutral in my opinion, but I do find that with Haus Labs for their foundation, and I'm assuming the concealer is probably going to be the same way. I think the shades do tend to run a little bit yellow. So that's another reason I love the Natasha Denona, is she has a whole range of true neutral undertones, which can be a little bit harder to find sometimes. All right, so I'm gonna do Haus Labs on this side. I also think the Haus Labs shade is gonna be a little bit brighter than the Natasha Denona shade, but that's okay. All right, and then we'll blend with the F03 from Sigma. The Haus Labs concealer has a very interesting texture. It's very different from a lot of other concealers. I've been trying to figure out if it reminds me of anything. It has a little bit of a thicker texture, almost like a thicker gel texture is how I would describe it. It's not like a super thin gel. It's still that kind of consistency, but the viscosity on it is just a little bit thicker. It's not as fluid as a typical gel concealer. I don't know if that makes sense, but okay. So there is Haus Labs on that side. And then we will use, I actually have two shades of Natasha Denona. I also have shade RN3. That one is a little bit rosier of an undertone. So this is RN3 from Natasha Denona. Haus Labs is in the middle, and then N2 is up there. They all look pretty different. To me, the undertones all look very different, so it's kind of hard to match them super well, but I'm just gonna go in with N2 from Natasha Denona. All right, and then I'm gonna switch to the 110 from BK Beauty to blend this one in. So we have Haus Labs here and Natasha Denona there. And I will, I'm gonna wear this makeup all day, obviously. I have to go out for a little bit, and I'll try to get a clip in my car of my makeup. I feel like you can really see well in front of windows and in your car. So I will definitely do that when I leave a little bit later. So what's interesting is, as of now, they've both been on for about 5-ish minutes. They look very similar under my eyes. The finish, very, very similar. I see very, very little difference, which is interesting, but I want to see how these wear, like I said. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up the rest of my makeup. I'll come back and we'll chat about it a little bit more, and then we'll wear this all day and see how it holds up to my current favorite. All right, working on doing my makeup, but I do want to set my under eyes. I was gonna leave them with no powder, but I think I am gonna use powder. So I'm gonna set both with the Haus Labs loose powder. Really wanna use my puff for this, but it's really hard to get the powder out on a puff. It's the only thing I don't love about this, but so far, nothing weird is happening with either of these concealers, like no creasing. They both look really, really good. So this should be very interesting side by side. But I'm gonna take my little puff here and very lightly set this concealer. So big difference you can see there. So that was the Haus Labs side, and then we'll set the Natasha side. Now I do wear the Natasha Denona concealer a lot without setting it, but I want to set both just for the sake of the video. I'm using very, very little powder too. Not very much at all. Okay, so now they're both set. I'm gonna finish my makeup and I'll be back. All right, I finished my makeup, and honestly, still, even after setting with powder, These concealers look pretty identical, which makes me very hopeful for this Haus Labs concealer because I love Natasha Denona, so if it's similar to that, then most likely I'm also gonna love that. But I wanna wear this all day long. I'll come back a few times, do at least one check-in, maybe two, in some natural light. And then by the end of the day, I'll update you on my thoughts on this one and how it compares to Natasha Denona. So I'll see you in a few hours. All right, so I'm obviously in my car, but I wanted to show you in natural light right here. So this is the Haus Labs side, this is the Natasha Denona side. I feel like you can usually see pretty well in your car, so I just wanted to show you. Hasn't been that long, it's only been like 2 hours since I applied it, but so far they look about the same. This side, the Haus Labs side, maybe looks like a tad bit more dry, maybe, but I mean, I don't notice a huge difference. That's all I really notice at this point. But I wanted to show you a good natural light shot so you could see. But I'm actually going into Sephora right now because I'm going to pick up the new Patrick Top palette. And I did a pickup order, so I came to pick it up. But this is what we're looking like as of right now. I'll see you in a few hours. All right, it's been like 6 hours now since I applied these. I just want to show you what everything looks like. Have not touched my face up with anything at all. So we have Haus Labs over here and Natasha Denona over there. Overall, I still feel like they look pretty similar. Yeah, I definitely like how the Haus Labs is sitting under my eyes. I do have a little bit of like dryness right here, which that happens with every concealer because I have lines there. But overall, I feel like they look pretty good. I do think Natasha still wins in terms of coverage. I think her coverage is just a little bit better, but I'm liking the Haus Labs. I don't know. I'm gonna wear it for a few more hours. I'll come back and update you again. But yeah, I feel like there hasn't been a ton of change. All right, it's the end of the day and I'm about to take my makeup off. Wanted to close out the video. Honestly, I don't know if it will show on camera, but when I was just looking up close at my two eyes, so this eye has Haus Labs, this eye has Natasha Denona, I do think after 9 hours, the Haus Labs looks slightly more smooth, not quite as dry in certain areas. Like right here up where I have these little creases, it's definitely a little more creasy looking on the Natasha side than this side. But what I will say is the Natasha Denona concealer, in my opinion, does really well with no powder. A lot of times I don't set that concealer. We did set it today, so I don't notice that as much when I don't use powder with it. So I don't know if it's that or just that's how it wore today, but I have to say this Haus Labs wore well. So it is long wearing, and I would say the same thing about the Natasha Denona concealer. Overall, I think if you like Natasha Denona, I think you will probably like Haus Labs. However, Haus Labs is a thicker consistency. It's thicker than any of these newer concealers. So thicker than Natasha Denona, definitely thicker than Tower 28, and even thicker than the Mario concealer. I don't necessarily think it blends out and looks like it's that thick, but when you apply it, it is a thicker texture. So if you know you don't like that, you're probably not gonna love this. I would say if you have really dry under eyes, I don't know that you would love this. I think if you have super dry under eyes, Tower 28 all the way. Definitely not Makeup by Mario if you have dryness. And this one and Natasha can absolutely be worn, in my opinion, if you have a drier under eye. You just have to make sure you prep them properly. Put an eye cream on, a beauty oil, your moisturizer, something under your eyes. But I also want to point out that I still would probably choose Natasha Denona overall because her shade range is phenomenal. The coverage is phenomenal. I also think Natasha has just slightly more coverage than Haus Labs. I would say this is solid medium coverage. I would say this is medium to full. I would say Tower 28 is medium, and I would say Makeup by Mario is, I would say probably medium. I think they're all medium coverage, except this one. This one I do think is medium buildable full. And I think Natasha Denona, the shade range is just so good. I love the shade that I have, which is N2 and RN3 in Natasha Denona. I haven't seen this shade or these concealers in person yet, so I don't know how the other shades look, but I do know this is supposed to be a neutral shade. It definitely leans warmer than a neutral to me, so I don't know. I'm wondering if that's going to be kind of the consensus of the whole range of these concealers, because I would say that about that foundation as well. But it wore beautifully. The wear is nice, and it, like I said in the intro, it has a lot of skincare in it. It has like 20 really good skincare ingredients. I'm pretty impressed with it, I have to say. I mean, it looks good. It looks really good. I'm kind of surprised. I did not think this was gonna hold up next to the Natasha Denona, but it does. It does. I don't know between this, Tower 28, and Makeup by Mario what my ranking would be, and including Natasha Denona, so I'm gonna keep using them and I'll update you in a future video. But Haus Labs to me is a win. I think it's very nice. If you can find a shade that works for you, you like a solid medium coverage, I like it. And the Haus Labs powder worked beautifully over the top. Now, I've not tried the Haus Labs without setting it, so I don't know how it wears with that, but this is a long wearing concealer, which is a big, big plus for me. And those are kind of my initial thoughts on it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will keep testing this with different things and let you know my updated thoughts on all these new concealers in a future video, but I have to say I'm pretty impressed with the Haus Labs. I like it. It wore great, and I think after 9 hours it looks really good. I will have everything linked below for you as always. I do use affiliate links, so I do make a commission if you shop through them. Thank you so much if you do that. It just helps support me and this channel. Make sure to subscribe and follow me over on Instagram at simply.blair and TikTok simply.blair1. And I will see you next time. Remember, simply be you.